Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Vinsick. Drew is at an airport with the best Wi-Fi connection at an airport that I've ever seen. Crystal clear, Drew. Very good. I am wearing makeup that I've done with the happy hour. So that's why I look like a K-pop star, pseudo K-pop star. And we are ready to talk about NL Cy Young. And then we're going to get into the NFL preseason as well. But let's start off with NL Cy Young. We talked a lot about the AL. The NL market, I think, is the most wide open awards market. I mean, it's the only one where we've got a favorite who is not minus money at the moment. Zach Gallen is plus 200. We'll get into that. Don't like that at all. Blake Snell is plus 300. Justin Steele, 5-1. And then Logan Webb, Spencer Strider, Corbin Burns, and Zach Wheeler are the next bets. What do you make of this market overall?
Yeah, I mean, we did a baseball podcast a week ago, and at the time, I did not think there was a long shot that could take this award home. I feel very differently today. This feels more wide open than ever. Really, both Cy Youngs, as we've covered AL pretty, comfortably. So I don't have a strong read here. If I had to take a price, I would take Strider 700, just because, for what it's worth, the Braves, I think, are still going to distinguish themselves as the clear best record in the NL. And when there's this much uncertainties, there may be a little bit of a default attack in that direction. I get why he's drifting, but I don't have a strong read that there is a consensus here at all. And the month of September is going to matter a ton to decide this award ultimately.
Yeah, I think Strider is probably going to need to go to 2 ERA the rest of the way at volume to get that ERA down to, the 3-3 type of range, at which point he could win because he's on a historic pace with the strikeouts, but he really shot himself in the foot, giving up 6 earned runs to the Pirates of all teams in 2 innings. His last start out, but yeah, definitely wouldn't put a line through him. I think the main way to focus on this market is that it's completely ridiculous that Zach Gallen is the favorite, let alone plus 200. That's just insane. If you just stack up his numbers alongside Logan Webb's, who's plus 700, they basically got the exact same stats. ERA, whip, WAR is relatively close. Gallen has the edge in F-WAR. Webb has the edge in B-WAR. Just across the board, innings pitched, Webb has a slight edge on him. Strikeouts, they're very close. Like, they just have the same resume, basically. And I don't know why people are so infatuated with Zach Gallen, where he's just been so entrenched at the top of the market. I got it more when the Diamondbacks were this surging team, but they are collapsing. And I don't think there's going to be any incentive to reward them if Gallen doesn't have clearly the best case. And I don't think he's got close to the best case at the moment. I think Blake Snell should be the favorite in this market, certainly ahead of Gallen, where people are a little obsessed about Snell's walks. And I get it. And I get that he doesn't have the volume, but he's got the ERA title. He's second in strikeouts. He's on a team that has a relatively easy schedule to close, and I think will make a playoff push, even though the Padres have been a disgrace the past week or so. So I think that Snell should be the favorite. Just when you look at what typically wins in this market, ERA is by far the biggest thing, and he has the title for it at the moment. You need pedigree. Snell is a former Cy Young winner. He's not considered in the same breath as guys like Verlander and Scherzer and Clayton Kershaw, who we're going to talk about. But it does have pedigree in a way that, say, Justin Steele does not. And then you need strikeouts generally, and Snell is an elite strikeout pitcher. So I think that he should be the favorite. And then I would say after that, there is a group of guys, which includes Gallen and Webb, Corbin Burns, and then Justin Steele, where if you were just going blind off of resumes and you just looked at the stats and didn't know who the names were, Justin Steele would be close to the favorite or the second favorite in this market. But because he's Justin Steele and no one actually thinks that he is the best guy, he's getting penalized for that. But if he helps lead the Cubs into the playoffs, particularly now that Marcus Stroman has fallen off a cliff and Steele is the clear ace, then I think that he could win this award if he gets the ERA title. But before we move on, I want to throw one long shot at you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if pedigree matters, if name brand matters, is there a name brand long shot with a chance?
Yeah, Clayton Kershaw, have you heard of him? He is 200-1 at the moment. And look, I don't think Kershaw is going to win. He's at 100 innings right now. He's going to make 8 or 9 starts the rest of the way. So optimistically, you could see him getting into the low 150s If he does that, I think to win. And right now he's got, I think, a 2.51 ERA, whip outstanding. He's not far off the lead in Baseball Reference's version of WAR either. He came back against the Rockies on Thursday night and looked really good. Looked like Clayton Kershaw, 5 innings pitched, 1 earned run, albeit against the Rockies. But I think that Kershaw, if he's lights out the rest of the way, goes at 2.2 ERA, wins the ERA title by margin. The problem is he's not going to qualify for the ERA title because he's not going to get to 162. But if he has the best ERA by margin and the rest of the field is just so uninspiring that they're like, oh, well, let's just give it to Clayton Kershaw because he did enough even with the time that he missed. I think the key for Kershaw is that he needs Gallen and Burns and Webb, the guys who are going to throw a lot of innings. He needs them to fall off because if they've got like 60, 65 innings edge on Kershaw and they have an ERA that is close to 3 flat, he's just not going to be able to beat those guys. If those guys fall off, though, and the other guys who are firmly in the Cy Young mix are Justin Steele and Blake Snell, who also aren't going to pitch a ton of innings. They're going to end up in the 170s, most likely. If they're in the 170s and Kershaw's in the 150s and Kershaw's got better stats than them, all of a sudden I think Clayton Kershaw could potentially win. And I don't think it's unreasonable at all to think that Snell and Steele could be the other guys, mainly in the race. So I think at 200-1, he is a bet. What do you think?
You've sold me. I mean, I was ready to look for any kind of long shot in this market, and the fact that you have a guy that everybody is very, is perfectly willing to get involved with, just as a name brand. That's all I needed to hear. So let's go, Clayton Kershaw. These prices seem ridiculous. 200-1 this time of year for a guy who's live seems impossible. But let's get some Kershaw.
Yep. And if Clayton Kershaw, if his name was Merrill Kelly or Charlie Morton with these current stats and the lack of innings pitched, he just wouldn't win. But because he is Clayton Kershaw, I think that there is a chance that he could do it from 200-1 back. All right, before we get into the NFL preseason, a reminder that with the NFL season quickly approaching, now is the perfect time to get your RotoWorld Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Get ready for your draft and stay one step ahead of your league during the preseason with updated player rankings, profiles, projections, mock drafts, and more. Go to NBCSports.com/draft guide and use code DRAFT2023 to save 20% at checkout. All right. NFL preseason is underway as we record on Friday. We've already had a couple of games, which they were NFL preseason games. I think there were some interesting things to take away, but wouldn't hang them in the Louvre. But what is your general approach to the NFL preseason? Any macro thoughts about how to attack the game?
Yeah. Well, lots of macro thoughts, and I've loved the preseason so far. I think because it's been a little bit of a betting lull for me. Otherwise, I've been paying more attention to the preseason than I usually do, and come away with some good winners so far. The under in the Patriots-Texans game was probably my favorite look of this week. And apologies if you didn't already hear me break that down in the 10 other NFL interviews that I do over the balance of a week, but that under was absolutely awesome, and it was based on the fact that they, both teams had meaningful injuries in the offensive line leading into these games, and that just goes to show that the way you handicap NFL preseason is you get information and you try to beat that information to market to the best degree possible. These lines are relatively small compared to what we have in the regular season. It's rare that you have any favorite outside of a touchdown. And I think the other key kind of factor is the totals are much lower. That's not necessarily because of the quality of players out there, although that matters. It's largely just because you're getting vanilla game scripts. You're getting a lot of running, particularly in the second half of these games, that tends to just kind of run the clock out, as opposed to teams who are playing for we need to kind of manage possessions late into games. So lower totals, smaller spreads. What does that mean? That means it's teasing season, Jay. Preseason teasers are absolutely awesome. I stay away from anything that is -3 to +1. Anything else, in my opinion, is a plus EV teaser leg. And if you want to add a little bit of, kind of qualifying information to your teasing decision making, because it can be tough to hand bet, 6 round robin teaser legs on a given Saturday, which I think is what we're going to have this Saturday. I tend to look to screen in legs that are steamy, steamed information. I'm not a guy that has ever playing back on steam in the preseason because it's steaming for a reason. This is not someone's opinion that a team is better than another team. This is someone who has done the research to say these injuries matter for these players. These quarterbacks are going to play this amount of time in these games, and that's what's controlling ultimately these outcomes. And so I think realistically, a leg that has been steamed from pick'em to -3.5. I don't mind teasing across 0 at all in the preseason. The rules matter. The likelihood of ties is higher. And in general, the margin of victory is smaller. So I think realistically, it's a fun way to kind of add to a little bit of exposure in your portfolio, build the bankroll for the NFL season. And I think teasing in that -3.5, -4, -4.5, all the way up to -6. Teasing down 2-0 or across 0 is a lot higher EV than you will ever hear me say in the regular season, where it is basically like kind of the kiss of death. Maybe an added benefit too, if you're teasing across 0 in the preseason, keep those accounts alive. Maybe you get a little green mark next to your account. If you're somebody's giving you some careful scrutiny, they're like, oh man, we got a fish here. He's teasing across 0. In my opinion, at least 3.5 down across 0 is a plus EV leg in the preseason. At least that's what the historical data says. Going back to about 2007. Other things to kind of macro things to note. Week 1 and week 2 of the preseason are the old week 2 and week 3, where you do get a lot of starters who are playing, and you do get a little less vanilla game scripts in the beginning half as coaches are trying some things out with their players who are ultimately going to take the field as starters week 1. So week 3 is a complete throwaway for me as far as betting the NFL preseason now. But I think week 1 and week 2 are going to be pretty fertile territory to find some plus EV moves.
Yep. I think there's a couple things to add. Is that one, chasing steam is often fraught with peril because you're flying blind. With stuff like the NFL preseason or NBA Summer League, I think there's a lot more merit in it, because usually a big move is because it's moving for a reason. You can generally trust it, that there is some team news that's swirling. And then secondly, I think this is important for the NFL, for all sports, but particularly with something like NFL preseason, is that if you're betting it, you need to be following like all the beat writers associated with the teams. You need to be hunting down on Twitter, finding out how many series that a given quarterback is going to play, and then betting off of that. Because to your point, just playing time is a lot more important than team quality in the preseason.
Yeah, you want a plus EV tip right in that vein? The late great Chris Wessling put together a Twitter list of all of the beat writers who kind of are plugged in across the NFL. It is not like the perfect list. Obviously, a lot has changed since he originally, put that together. But boy, oh boy, that is an everyday wake up. First thing I check, look at the list, see if there's anything popping. And if you have missed the steam, if like the Carolina Panthers, I think opened plus 2.5, they're minus 3.5 right now. Like you can't now in good conscience bet the Panthers. However, there are other ways to find different avenues for success there. Like wait for the first halves to open and see if they've correctly priced the first half with the news. See if the first half total reflects the news. There are other fun ways to try to take advantage of this. And again, I see a stronger signal of plus EV teaser legs on sides that have steamed, because usually the information is correct.
Yeah. And I think the preseason, there are a lot of parallels to Week 18 of the NFL season, which effectively become preseason / postseason unimportant games, where teams are playing their starters for a half. And often still the way that a lot of markets are set up is that, you're deriving your first quarter lines directly from the overall core markets, which is not the way to do it, particularly in the preseason. All right, before we jump into the games, reminder, there is no better place to be in Boston on a Sunday morning than legendary Fenway Park. See if the Red Sox can close the gap for the final wildcard spot when they host the Tigers at 11:30 a.m. Eastern on MLB Leadoff. Stream the action live exclusively on Peacock. All right, I'm going to run through the games on Saturday. Just some notes. Titans at Bears. Bears 3.5-point favorites, total 37. Tennessee defensive line coach Terrell Williams will be serving as the head coach. Justin Fields and most Bears starters will play. Next game, Colts, 4.5-point favorites at the Bills, 38.5 the total there. Anthony Richardson will start for Indianapolis, and looks like he's probably going to be the starter for the regular season as well. Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs will not play in the preseason. Sean McDermott, a monster against the spread in the preseason, 12-5-1 for whatever that is worth. And then Jets-Panthers at 4 p.m. Eastern. Panthers, 3.5-point favorites, total 37.5. Bryce Young will start for Carolina, and Frank Reich is also a bit of a preseason darling, 8-4-2 against the spread. Do you have any plays on these games?
No plays yet, but I'm monitoring Bills Colts to try to find Bills first half there. The Bills reserves are among the best in the NFL, which means their second unit out there. And by the way, there's going to be some starters even without Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs for the Bills. I think the Bills are live in the first half. I don't think Anthony Richardson's going to step in and light the world on fire in that game. So Bills for me first half, even though the Colts ultimately, I agree, should be favored there. And then I will note that preseason darling Chris Streveler, who was a Jet, is no longer with the team as he sustained an injury in the Hall of Fame game. So the Jets are an absolute no touch at all for the preseason for me for the remainder of the rundown here. And I think I'm going to look for I'm going to try to get an under Carolina. Anything under -3 in the first half is going to be a fair look. The Jets offensive line situation is also in deep trouble right now with the injuries they've sustained. So I think it's realistic to think Carolina, with some of their defensive starters, are going to be able to keep the Jets at 0 or 3 points in the first half, which gives them a decent chance to cover a first half spread.
Yep, and as you would expect, Aaron Rodgers will play no part in that game. All right, the later games on Saturday, Jags, 3.5-point favorites at the Cowboys, total 37 flat. Trevor Lawrence will start, as will Calvin Ridley. Doug Peterson has not typically taken the preseason ultra seriously, 8-12 against the spread. Dak Prescott, very unlikely to play all preseason, as you might expect. Eagles, Ravens, 4.5-point favorites. Ravens, obviously the gods of NFL preseason. Total there is 35. Baltimore's established starters will not play. John Harbaugh is 38-16 against the spread in preseason. And then Rams, Chargers, the fight for LA. Rams, 3-point favorites. Total a magnificent 33.5. Justin Herbert has never played a preseason snap in his career, and Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp will not play. Any bets on these games?
Yeah, I like the Ravens as a teaser leg, especially. Ravens haven't lost a preseason game going back to 2015. They haven't failed to cover a 6-point teaser leg going back to 2015 as well. And I'm not going to bet that Chargers-Rams game, but I think the Rams are probably the right side. And I got to watch that game, though, because there's a couple of camp battles, particularly on the offensive line, that interest me, that are going to be important for pricing the Rams-Seahawks week 1, which right now I'm leading pretty heavily in the direction of the Seahawks.
Okay, and then to close out on Sunday, Chiefs at Saints. Saints 3-point favorites. Total is 37.5. Patrick Mahomes has started every preseason opener for Kansas City. And Derek Carr and the Saints starters, they plan to play. So we might have some more star power on this one than usual. And then the last game, 49ers, 4-point favorites at the Raiders. Total 35.5 flat, 4 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Brock Purdy, the great Brock Purdy, is unlikely to play. Any plays on these games?
Yeah, I think we say steam is usually right. I do not agree with the Saints team. I think the Chiefs are probably the right side there. And I like Chiefs first half because I do expect to see Mahomes. And I do have questions about what's going on with the depth in the Saints squad overall, especially because they're signing guys off the street like Jalen Smith. And, it's not a good sign. I think I read the signing of vets who no one else wanted as potentially problematic for the Saints squad. And I think they recognize this is kind of a do or die season considering what they invested in Carr and, what they have in terms of an aging roster here. So Saints to me look like a team that I'm willing to bet against in this preseason.
Yep. Okay. That makes sense. All right. That does us for today. Last thing I forgot to mention, Blake Snell starts Friday night, so in a few hours from when we're recording, and based on the line.
Oh no!
I said that someone should be the favorite or close. So I might go bet some out overs for the Diamondbacks team total. Blake Snell looks like he's probably going to give up 7 earned. Just hang in there, Blake. Hang in the fight. All right, you can give up some ground balls, man. All right. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. And also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. Jake Boucher and Drew Dinsick and Blake Snell's Walk Rate. We'll see you.